Justin, why has there been a complete failure of modern day parents?
I think it's because the concept of masculinity has been perverted, bastardized, and shat upon. In other words, we as a society have decided to kick dad, and when I say dad, I mean the concept of masculinity out. And as a result of this, you lose the discipline and you lose the rigor that's needed to actually help kids grow up and be productive members of society. Josh, you mentioned the other day that you were at a Lifetime, which for those who don't know, it's a high-endish gym. And while you were there, Josh, I think you were telling me like there was just like, these kids that were just, well, Josh, you tell the story. You tell the story.
Yeah, I mean, at first, I have absolutely no problem. I actually enjoy kids very much. At first, they were just playing around, acting very peaceful. But then their mother was saying, "Hey, you need to stop. Like you're being kind of a ruckus." And this kind of sparked inside their brain, and they started to go crazy. They would progressively get worse and worse. And when their parents, when she eventually sat them down, was like, "You have to stop." I mean, then they just absolutely went berserk. I mean, like they were just like throwing stuff across everything. I got hit by a water bottle a few times. I mean, I was just out there reading a book, and then I got hit by a water bottle. And then what happened? The mother sat them down and said, "If you guys stop and sit here, I will get you McDonald's after we leave." And this is kind of what triggered it in my head. What is the mother doing? She's basically incentivizing bad behavior gets a positive reward. And then let's take this to a different level, because that is extraordinarily bad. And I mean, almost all parents are doing this, whether it's with bad food, which is subconsciously program your brain to, when something bad happens, I'm going to eat bad food, or they give them a cell phone or technology, which is going to rot their brain away. And that, again, something bad happened. Happens when you're older. Something bad happened to me in my day. So now subconsciously, I'm going to sit on my laptop and I'm going to rot my brain away and eat pizza with French fries, because that is what I did when I was younger. Even if you're not conscious of that when you're doing it, that is almost why you're doing it. The same thing has happened with good responses. And this is what happened to me. And I can actually, now that I'm trying to re-hardwire my brain, I can see myself doing this in real time. For me, positive feedback. If I, let's say, was playing a football game and I did really good when I was a kid, my dad would take me and we would go get food after, and we'd get bad food. I mean, it would be like donuts or something terrible. And what did that do? Now, subconsciously, I do an impressive feat. Let's say I go on I run 10 miles. I like to run, and I accomplish something pretty difficult. Then I reward myself with shitty food, basically offsetting the good that I do with something bad, because I think with achievement, I deserve something equal or lesser bad. And that is just a completely distorted view that parents are hammering down on their kids today. But I think what is especially bad is rewarding bad behavior and promising and giving someone something that they simply do not deserve, when what you actually need is a strong, as Justin was saying, a quote unquote male present that is going to be able to put harsh punishment. I mean, if you stand still to your ground.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, the two things that come to mind is Bloom talks about this in Codem, and also, Samuel's touched on it briefly too. And you can also look at Tom Sowell would be another example. Stephen Molyneux will touch on this as well. But the point is this, like to plagiarize Samuel's here, the child's boss is the mom. The mom's boss is the dad, and the dad's boss is God. That's how the hierarchy, works. That's who reports up to who or whatever, right? And at the end of the day, like if you take dad out of the picture, or you have a bunch of males who never learned how to truly be masculine from a father figure, like especially if they learned how to be male from a woman, oh God help them. Like, it's like a fish trying to teach a fisherman how to fish. That's an old good one over there, right? They're just not well suited for the role. And like, of course you're going to have chaos because you're missing like a critical component. It's like trying to put on muscle at the gym and not eating protein. Sure, you might be busting your ass, you might be everything, lifting or whatever rise, but like your body needs protein, and like that's just what it is. And so yes, the role of the masculine, or like the stereotypical role of the masculine, or the, God forbid, the evil patriarchy, like it actually has a role for it, and it actually has a good role. And we as a society, for the West, seem to have forgotten that role, and we are paying the price, might I add, for that. Because here's the thing, right? If the kids don't learn boundaries and disciplines in the family, in the home, where it's actually relatively safe and easy, they will eventually learn it. There's a good book that had a quote that said, lessons are learned until they are repeated. And if they don't learn it at the home, and if they don't learn it in school, they will learn it in the real world. If they learn in the real world, the cost of that lesson will be exponentially higher, and perhaps exponentially more debilitating or deadly.
And what would you do if you were a kid? If every single time you acted up and behaved extremely poorly, you were rewarded with something of, let's say, McDonald's, or you got an iPad shoved in your face, what would you do? You would always act bad. And then what's that going to lead to in your future? I mean, your parents are setting you up for failure. And what's even worse is the parents are negotiating with the kids. They're sitting there saying, "Oh, you do this, and I'll give you that." I mean, they have zero control. And I'm not saying that parents should be out here whipping their kids to make sure that they're standing up straight and walking straight ahead. But you need to have some sort of discipline, or you like, how are you possibly going to accomplish anything in ever?
Yeah, you basically have to put in the constraints for the individual, and that is anathema in today's society. But if you don't do that, sooner or later, it will be done. And again, we'll put a link in the description, but Peterson did an excellent video talking about how you essentially have a bunch of 2-year-olds, like adult 2-year-olds running around today, because they never really learned how to essentially play. And when I say the word play, what I mean is learning how to interact with other adults. But Josh, yep, you hit the nail on the head. You know, there's a crisis of masculinity, which is cascading into a crisis in the family, which is cascading into a crisis of raising kids. I mean, like, it's just all over the place. Sooner or later, the kings are going to have to return and reclaim their place. And if they don't, boy, is it going to be a mess.
It is repugnant.
Who taught you that word?